Ladies and gentlemen, we're back with Season 3, Episode 7, The Wonderbolt's Academy. This is the episode in which Rainbow Dash goes up and finally achieves her dream of attending the, the Wonderbolt's Academy, hence the name of the episode. And while she's there, she meets Maverick, but Goose doesn't really like her, or maybe she's Iceman instead of Goose. I don't know, it's kind of hard to say. But either way, they end up fighting some people, and at the end of the thing, Iceman wins Best in Class. Hang on, I think I'm kind of confused. The point being, Lightning Dust ends up being a bit of a maverick. I'm sorry, I'll stop with the stupid jokes. This is the Top Gun episode, all right? This episode was put together by Meriwether Williams, and it's the best episode ever. Right, Sierra Mike? Because I feel like you really, really love this episode in all of its facets and forms. Feel free to confirm. The first thing I want to comment on is there's this bit early on where Rainbow Dash mentions that she's the best flyer in Ponyville. This is a thread I feel like they put down and never actually picked back up. And I feel like this has to do somewhat a little bit with the original ending of this episode, which I'll talk about later, obviously. We've already seen this come up, this concept, this theme. There's this thing where Applejack is like, I'm the best at my various tactics. I forget the name of it. She's going to go to attend a rodeo type thing, right? We've already had this episode. I didn't actually like that episode. And she's like, I'm going to attend, and it's going to be great. Actually, I could probably figure out the episode name by just looking at the episode I don't like. Is it Over a Barrel? No, that's not it. Putting Your Hoof Down, maybe? Last Roundup. That's it. Season 2, Episode 14. Last Roundup. Mystic Quest. You got it. You never did answer me, but thank you for answering me. The idea here is that, and this is a theme that I think deserves some analysis, especially in a show like this. You may be the best in your area, but that doesn't mean you're going to be the best everywhere, right? I mean, that's just logic, right? But the thing is, it's funny how many people need to be taught this lesson, and how many people need to cognate this lesson. And this is a good lesson for kids to have, to be completely blunt. Hell, this is a good lesson for adults to have. You may be the best in your town or of your friends, but if you start expanding the scope, if you increase the size of the pond, so to speak, you're going to find bigger fish out there. This actually kind of ties into the Krennic concept. The difference is a Krennic thinks they're a big fish in a big pond when they're in fact not. But it would have been kind of cool if they kept going on this thread, because there's actually a later scene where Rainbow Dash is like, wow, I'm actually not the best. And it's when she gets made Wing Pony under Lightning Dust. Thing is, they then drop that thread immediately and just have Lightning Dust being this incredibly reckless person, and then you're in and everything's awesome forever. And it's like, but that was a cool idea. Why'd you abandon this? So, we've talked before about how the Wonderbolts are probably the closest thing they have to a military. I've mentioned before the idea that they're the Blue Angels, or the Wonderbolts. Thunderbolts, excuse me, Thunderbolts. That's probably a deliberate reference, honestly. I don't know, believe it or not. I've never found any specific things there. Yeah, actually, Rainbow Dash is basically Iceman, if you're paying attention to the parallels. You notice Rainbow Dash also was originally going to get the first in class medal, which, if you remember Top Gun, that went to Iceman. So that does line up. Iceman is also the one who is the one to call out Maverick. You're dangerous, right? So, yeah, no, she's playing the role of Iceman, which is interesting. Because in Top Gun, Maverick was generally portrayed in a positive light, and here, Lightning Dust is almost universally portrayed in a negative light. It's interesting to think about. Adrian Whisperer. Military. I've been thinking about this probably more than I should. As a side note, by the way, I've been getting more comments, more positive comments, more decent comments on the YouTube VODs. So y'all are awesome for continuing to be awesome people. But one person posited the idea I'm trying to remember the exact phrasing, which is why I'm stalling here, because I'm trying to remember the exact phrasing. They basically said something along the lines of, well, no, I feel like the Wonderbolts are more of a emergency relief kind of a service, and they're there when a disaster strikes, or, you need to deploy people in an organized fashion. And I remember looking at that and thinking, but that's the military. I mean, I think a lot of this stems from the post-Vietnam War and, around the TNG era anti-military concept, because, a lot of people tend to think military is just the guys who fight and shoot and kill. And as we've already talked about, that's incredibly untrue on several different levels. But the more I look at these guys, and the more the way I see them structured, I like to think that these guys, that is to say, the Wonderbolts in specific, I think they're really big on basically being here for flash and substance and style. It's just that's really important to them, given the idyllic nature of the country. While they are there to help in certain situations, it's always just because they happen to be on the scene, not because they're the emergency relief force, even though that would make sense to me. I'm explaining this incredibly wrong. Let me try again. It's like they're a sports team. There we go. That's how I want to put this. They're a high-end football club, and they get to show off and be this big fancy thing because they're the best, because they're the one who can go to the Premier League, because they're the ones who can go to the Super Bowl, or whatever parallel you want to use there, because these are the top end, and because it's serious business for these people who, again, idyllic circumstance. I think that's just kind of how that tends to work. We've seen before, and we'll see again, that they focus very heavily on shows, on putting on displays. The Blue Angels and the Thunderbolts parallel is obvious. But I like the idea that it's serious business for them in the exact same way that football is serious business for us in real life. And I mean both footballs, by the way, which just helps to make my point. The difference is it's not as competitive. They're not really competing against anyone, but the same concepts still are in place. A lot of money is cycled through them. They have a lot of proper support. They have stadiums. They're hired to go through an actual sporting events. They display at just about every major. We're going to have, in Season 4, we're going to have a big Coliseum-type event, and they're going to be present at it, I think it's a good parallel. And I bring this up because I imagine not a lot of my viewers are like this, but if you were to try to suggest to several people who really care about football, either one, that it's not really a big deal and it shouldn't be taken seriously, they'd look they'd look at you like you were nuts. Because it is a big deal. And this is what I'm cycling around here for, because the thing I keep getting hung up on is how seriously they all treat the Wonderbolts. As if it's really serious business. It's very strict, very harsh, far more severe than just about anything else we've seen in all of Equestria so far. Even governments don't tend to be portrayed as seriously and as severely as the Wonderbolts. But again, if you keep that sports parallel in mind, if you look at the top-end competition aspect, all of a sudden that kind of lines up properly. You may not be into it, and I may not be into it. I mean, I enjoy football. I'll let you guess which one. But there are people who do, and there are people who are. And there's a reason those tend to be hundreds of millions of dollar industries each. Just food for thought, because I'm a world builder at heart, and I just think about these weird things while I watch these episodes. Anyways, speaking of world building, how many people look at Pinkie Pie and say, "Oh, she's so stupid. Look at her. She's worried Rainbow Dash is going to forget about her and not be her friend anymore. Isn't that ridiculous?" Oh yeah, by the way, in those positive comments I mentioned, I have been asked to try and... I have been asked to stop spoiling future episodes, which I admit I've been pretty casual about in the same way that I usually am in my Star Trek stuff, because that's my approach. That's how I usually do show ruminations, is I spoil future things to make point in current things. That's kind of... I can't do it without doing that. But I'm going to try to pull back a little bit on that. Just a little bit. And instead be like, you know, this will come up in the future, rather than, in this episode, we find out that it was his sled. Trying to be a little less overt about spoilers. And, so I'm going to try to pull back a little bit on the spoilers there. And hopefully we'll see how that goes going forwards. Anyways. Yeah, DS9 is the mentality I'm thinking. I'll mention things like this is going to come up in the future, and then, you know, we'll see. Like, for example, in the future, the history and backstory of the Wonderbolts will come up. And I can say something like that, because that will come up, and that's something we can discuss then. We'll just leave it for then, right? So, thoughts. Savacom, what the hell are you doing? Like, well, she put it towards how terrible I am. She says in the donation here, you suck. I hate you. You're the worst streamer I've ever seen. You're also the only streamer I've ever seen, so that's technically true. I don't understand why you keep breathing. You should just kill yourself. Suicide. Just friendly reminder, YouTube, this is not for kids. I hate you. And you suck, is what she says in her comment. Alright, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pretend that donation didn't happen until after I'm done talking, because I don't think my viewers want to watch me bow for that long. I can't math for some reason all of a sudden. Hey, Ruth. Good to hear from you. I don't know. My math brain is just not working right now. I feel like that's 100 seconds. I'm pretty sure that's 100 seconds, which actually isn't all that long, but still. Minute 40. I guess that's a long time to bow. Hang on, let me find a song that's a minute and 40 seconds long. I'll circle back to that. We'll do that after the discussion, so that the people in the VOD don't have to watch me bow for a minute and 40 seconds. Pinkie Pie is what I was discussing. So, how many of you relate to Pinkie Pie in this episode? I mentioned this because I've talked many times, and I'm going to keep pointing this out, that it's possible for Pinkie Pie to be kooky and in character versus kooky and out of character, right? And I'm going to keep pointing it out when they do it right and when I think they do it wrong. And when they do it right is when they do something like this, because what she's doing is she's basically just having a minor anxiety attack. She's worried that because the fact that she hasn't heard from her friend in a while, that she's going to lose her friend. And that is an extremely understandable worry. They exaggerate it because it's only been like a week, but it's still there. And it still makes sense. Her train of logic is actually fairly sound, as weird as that may sound. It's also interesting because it kind of ties into something about Pinkie in particular. First of all, she's only recently, 3 days, she's only recently become friends with Rainbow Dash. That's a new friendship. That's a recent development, relatively speaking, especially if this show is supposed to take place in less than 3 years, which I still don't buy, but let's not get into that right now. So you've got this relatively new friend who you're still trying to connect with, and it's on the way out. And you're worried now. So yeah, this is exaggerated, absolutely. Probably because this is a 24-minute show. But overall, I'm completely with her on that. In fact, what's funny is her overall idea to send a letter first and then just take a care package is a great idea. And frankly, is the kind of thing I would absolutely welcome if I was in Rainbow Dash's position. So, yeah, that's actually pretty tight. I'm with that. Meanwhile, over at the Academy, Bulk Bicep shows up. You remember him? I hope you do. He's actually a semi-recurring character. Although, funnily enough, and I can't believe this, but I double-checked to look this up. This is only the second time he's shown up in the show. Second appearance total. He'll show up a lot more in the future. Minor spoilers. But it's interesting that he's only ever poked his head in once, and that was during Fluttershy. Hurricane Fluttershy, excuse me. Anywho. So, on the one hand, I want to praise Spitfire, because she does the typical thing, right? You know, you're not worth the mud off the bottom of my hoof. On the other hand, she's actually willing to give praise where praise is due. One of my favorite examples of this is when Meadowflower manages a 15-second recovery from the Dizzotron, and she says, oh, that's decent. As opposed to, you know, you ain't worth the stupid which is what I was actually expecting from her. The problem then comes from the fact that she apparently has no idea how to do her job properly. I find myself wondering, based on what we've seen of the Wonderbolts, of the Wonderbolts, I wonder if people like Lightning Dust have snuck through and become, you know, members of the Wonderbolts just because of terrible instruction, or if Lightning Dust is the first time this has actually happened. I'm not sure which of those is true. Because we don't see a lot of the Wonderbolts being, you know, uppity, arrogant snobs like Lightning Dust is. But we also don't see all of them. They're a decently large organization. And, spoilers, we're going to see more of them in the future, so it just kind of makes me wonder. I don't know. It's also possible they've had Lightning Dusts in the past, and they've just torpedoed them out of the Academy. I'm not sure about that either. Either way, Rainbow, of course, is very upset about not being made Leader Pony, and she's instead Wing Pony. That actually makes a lot of sense. And again, I feel like that's why that was supposed to be one of the original Aesops and themes of the episode, is the idea that she's, you know, oh my god, I'm not the best. Like, that realization being a character moment for her makes a lot of sense for me. It's a shame that they didn't go with that and immediately torpedo that idea. But, you know, it's an idea that I'm with. Again, you're great for your town. You're the best. They even say in the beginning of the episode, they flat out say, you are the best flyer in Ponyville. In Ponyville. But again, they decide not to. Whatever. Moving on. So they start doing formation training. This is finally when Top Gun comes into play. Up until now, it's not even really been referenced, but this is when this comes in. If it's not obvious, Lightning Dust is Maverick and Rainbow Dash is Iceman. And the parallels are very close to one-on-one as far as the personalities and how they clash and blah, blah, blah. That being stated, there's this bit where, you know, it's not a race. Right. Sure, it's not a race. I mentioned the competitive flying thing. I want you to approach a speedrunner. Let's use something a little more geeky. And say, don't worry, it's not a race. Just do the best time you can against these other people who are also doing the same run at the same time. To use Formula 1 as an example. During practice sessions, I mean, it's not a race. No, of course it's a race. Of course it's always a race. It's always a competition. I'm not even making fun. Healthy competition can be a good thing. It's just, you know. Maybe that's why they deliberately try to say it's not a race, to try and pull back on that a little bit. I don't know. Moving on. This is when Lightning Dust loses me. She takes again, truncated, 24 minutes, but Maverick, excuse me, she takes the Maverick idea and just flings it out the window. She comes up with excuses, but her reaction to every time she jumps out of the situation is just to be like, who cares? I find myself wondering if she's never had to deal with consequence before. Because all of her shenanigans don't really hurt anybody, right? We don't know a lot about her backstory or where she comes from or why she is. So, who knows on that regards. But up until the Twister Balloon thing, no one gets hurt. And even during the Twister Balloon thing, they are saved, so no one actually was hurt. They could have been hurt, but they weren't. Still no consequence. I don't know, that's just kind of the general vibe I get from her. And again, that would continue the parallel to Top Gun, aka, you know, it's Maverick having to finally deal with the consequence. I don't want to spoil Top Gun, but Maverick does have to deal with consequence of being the Maverick. The Twister issue, yeah, that was a... I'm trying not to be too upset at this episode, but Spitfire is in her office, facing away from the scene, doing paperwork while they're out doing these exercises. Hello, Jean-Geek Tordai. What's up? And, she isn't even aware of the fact that they're done until Rainbow Dash comes in. No, I don't have a website. And is like, hey, we're done. And she's like, oh, wow, you're done. Oh, okay. Were you not paying attention, Spitfire? Was nobody paying attention whatsoever? Were they completely unsupervised as they were going off and just doing it? You'd think, I mean, okay, maybe this is just a little bit of, you know, my own thoughts, perspectives, whatever you want to call it, coming out here. But generally speaking, even if you're not doing anything as, like, you're not doing a live fire exercise or equivalent, even if you're not doing something overtly dangerous, you always want at least one person watching, right? I cannot be the only person who thinks that way. Especially in this kind of a professional environment. It would be like, let me use a direct parallel. It would be like if someone was trying to show me the ropes on how to run an overnight data center and was just like, you know, not helping and not watching and just overdoing their own thing, playing video games on the side. You always need a spotter. Like, this applies in so many aspects of existence. Never mind actual approaching military training. I mean, if you're just doing something like, let's say it's the very first time you've ever had to run drive-through at a fast food place, right? If you've never run, okay, I've been a manager at Arby's. I've mentioned that before, and I was the closing manager, so I'd take over at about 4 or 5-ish, and then I'd run the dinner rush, and then I'd shut down the store. So, if I ever had to train someone, I would make it a point to actually be there to spot them for whatever job they're doing. It's not like it's the most dangerous, terrifying job in existence, running the cash register and talking to customers, but I'd still be there to spot them. Not only because they need the safety net, but because I need to make sure that they're doing cool, both in terms of what they can accomplish, and to make sure they're not getting overwhelmed. I had one guy actually try to shuffle, this is a direct story, I actually had one guy try to shuffle over into drive-thru, and for those of you who've never worked in fast food, drive-thru is the busy spot. That's where you put your best employees, because they are constantly busy and constantly cycling through customers and register and having to grab things and expediting and blah, blah, blah. That's the busy spot. I usually put myself on drive-thru as well, consequently. Right? So there's one guy who I put over there, and he couldn't handle it. I was like, all right, no problem, no problem. Switch up front, switch up front. And I was like, you know, Bob, I'm not going to say his actual name. Bob, come here. Tomorrow, Jen Kodori. We're not playing GTA 5 until tomorrow. Right? And again, this is fast food. Not exactly the most important thing in the universe. And as someone pointed out, who was it? I think it was Ruth. Just mentioned it. Scroll up, scroll up, scroll up. Yeah, like this is apparently like the best flying school of the best flyers in all of Equestria. Where's the spotter? I'm sorry, I hate to keep bashing on this point, but this is a big aspect of why this episode loses me and why I can't place it as an actual good episode. despite the fact that it does have a legitimately good moment in it. And it does. Actually, it has several good moments. It has good Pinkie Pie stuff. It has some good Rainbow Dash stuff. Like, but it's still kind of an irritating episode because of the way they portray this. Also, I have a quick note here. I know Rainbow Dash is good and all, and certainly motivated, but where the hell is everyone else in this elite flyer academy? You know, when the balloon goes out of control and falls. So, you know, Rainbow Dash manages to go down and save them. And at least the other flyers managed to help capture them after Rainbow Dash did the initial. But, I mean, where was everybody? Oh, that's right. They were off doing paperwork in the room, not paying attention. You notice that Spitfire completely missed the balloon incident. Right? You caught that? So again, the whole spotting thing that I've been banging on about for like 5 minutes now. I'm starting to keep haranguing this point. It's just, what? Yeah, I'm actually with Sierra Mike on this. Rainbow Dash acts like you would expect a professional military member to act. Action. Go. There's a danger. You need to act immediately. I mean, I'm kind of with you, Lord Harriman. Yeah, there's a staff with Spitfire. Where the hell were they? God. Yeah, so, you know, Rainbow Dash goes and saves them. Woo. I do love the part where Fluttershy realizes she can fly and sheepishly kind of hops out of the arms. I also love Pinkie Pie saying, "Oh, you remember me." I know that feeling too. You know, the whole anxiety thing I mentioned earlier. There's something really amazingly relieving to know that, don't worry, they still like you, and they still like hanging out with you, and they're still your friends. Because I know that feeling extremely well. So then, Lightning Dust is completely unrepentant in the face of actual consequence. I mean, it's okay, they didn't get hurt, it's cool. And when called on it, her reaction is, and I wrote this down word for word, yeah, and that's her reaction to the fact that she nearly got them severely injured or killed. Maverick. So yeah, this part of the episode really loses me quite a bit, for reasons I feel like I have explained. Nope, this is it, Jen, I have no idea how to pronounce your name. Jay, your name is now Jay, and you're silent. So, Sundays we don't play games. Sunday is lore week, and then Streaminations. And then I have to do errands and whatnot. I'm sorry, I'm terrible with names. You know this, man, you know this. Actually, I love that idea, Weouts. Legit. Like a unicorn group. And in fact, honestly, I think there would be an Earth Pony group as well, to be completely blunt. I think that's such a great idea, and I have no idea if they ever do that. So, you'll notice that once again, the theme of Season 3 continues, wrapping up loose threads. And while obviously the show goes on past Season 3, you can see the outer edges of how this could have terminated the story. Because Rainbow Dash manages to finally get into the Academy. She's not into the Wonderbolts, but she's into the Academy, and she's at the point where she's finally going to be able to make her dream happen. She's willing to walk away from it, you know, but then she's brought back into it, and she's first in class, and, you know, they've got my eye on me, blah, 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 the end. Like, that's actually a great way to end if they were going to terminate the show there. She doesn't succeed in her dream, which is frankly unrealistic. What she does is she succeeded at beginning her dream, which is way more realistic. I'm going to use a weird parallel. Anybody seen Monsters University? It's the second Monsters, Inc. film. I'm also about to spoil the end of Monsters University. But I have to do this because it's one of my favorite endings of a film. It's so well done, because what happens is Mike Wazowski and Sully go to the university in order to become scarers, in order to join Monsters, Inc. It's a prequel. Now, the thing is, we know they're going to succeed, but what happens is they don't. They fail. Now, here's why this works so well. What they do is they decide just because we didn't succeed, just because we didn't end up at the top of things, doesn't matter. We're going to get in there at the bottom rung, and we're going to work our way up. And they get a job as like the male people. And there's this quick montage as they continue through hard work and persistence, work their way up to the point of actually becoming scarers. And the movie finally ends on them having successfully become scarers, having achieved the dream rather than it just happening. I like that. Because, while that obviously doesn't always work, that is a way more realistic take on that than, and then we succeed and we're at the top of our class. If I could spoil another movie, sorry, Star Trek 2009. I'm going to spoil Star Trek 2009 here, okay? Okay, here we go. Star Trek 2009 did the exact opposite here. Cadet Kirk, and I remind you, Cadet Kirk, hadn't even left the Academy yet, is, after the events of the film, instantly promoted to captain. What? I tend to hate that kind of thing in fiction. Because that's complete BS, first and foremost, but also because it gets across completely the wrong message, in my opinion. You don't start working on something and then succeed. That's not how life works. You practice, you work at it, you get better at it, and occasionally you will work your way up to the point of success, like in Monsters, Inc., and like was going to be in this episode, which, bringing this back to My Little Pony, is one of the reasons I like the direction they were taking this. You know, she has joined the Academy, she's impressed the people, she has begun the path, she's going to work her way up. I like that. If they had just made her a Wonderbolt on the fly, that would actually have pissed me off. But they didn't. Credit. Credit where credit is due. This is a good time as I need to mention the original ending. Okay. So I actually have the document right here. I'll go ahead and link it to you guys in chat. So these are some shots that were released by Megan McCarthy of the original script of the episode. So what was originally going to happen was Lightning Dust was busted down to Wing Pony. And she was going to have to kind of start over again. Lightning Dust had this message: I was out of control up there. You did what you were supposed to do. Let some pony know about it. And then the episode was supposed to end on Rainbow Dash being first in class, just like Iceman. And she didn't. And the final line was, it's not exactly a spot on the Wonderbolts, but Spitfire says they've got their eye on me. I like that ending a lot better, personally. Mostly because of the things I just mentioned. But, you know, whatever. Instead, Lightning Dust is completely drummed out of the Academy, which, frankly, she deserves. And the end. Not sure what I think of the way they ended up going with it. I almost feel like there's some meddling going on here, but I wasn't able to find any details about that, so I don't really have anything to share about that. Whoops. Close the wrong notes here. There we go. Anywho, then the episode ends. And we all know Star Wars sucks. Now, do you think this qualifies as a wah-wah for the ending? You know, wait, you forgot your care package. I'm kind of on this one. Yeah, this is kind of like a... I think this doesn't qualify. If nothing else, it doesn't fulfill the spirit of a wah-wah. An hour of push-ups. I've got a lot of upper body, but I think that would actually kill me. Anyways, this is why basic sucks. No, I'm just kidding. So that's all I got. We're going to go ahead and chop off the little recording.